we are working on the ground for that. You know, the last elections in 2019, we covered a lot of ground. We made inroads into Diego Martin, even San Fernando. So we want to consolidate those, push further there, etc. So we're working hard.
Okay. I want to give you my blessings, and of course, wish you all the best as days grow nearer. Fareed, how are you?
I'm good. Good
Nice.
afternoon, Dr. Meighoo. It's such a pleasure to have you with us this afternoon.
It's my pleasure.
It'll be good to hear your distinguished voice, as well as bringing to bear your experiences, not just on the academic side, but also in your relationship and your portfolio with the United National Congress.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you want to tell us just an outline of some of the work you've been doing of late before we get into that area that we called you for.
Okay. I mean, well, with the UNC, I mean, I've been the public relations officer for a little more than a year now, maybe a year and 3 months. It was since the end of January 2021 I was appointed. And, you know, and so since taking up that post, we've been really concentrating on putting the party in the media more, in the media spotlight, in making sure our policies, our positions are much more widely known, and that, you know, we have various forums like Sunday media conferences, and we always had the Monday night virtual, and then the TNT Speaks, right? And these are always obviously under the guidance and leadership of Kamla Prasad-Bissessar, who has been, you know, guiding it and also very supportive at the same time. And I think we've done a very good job in terms of turning the kind of almost the default mode of the country has always been to basically accept what the PNM says, whether it's true, false, indifferent, made up on the spot or whatever, and just sort of go with that narrative without a sufficient challenge. And I think we've really turned that around, and that to a point where I believe the PNM are on the back foot, and they are constantly having to respond to the issues we are raising, because we're not letting them divert and change and shift focus. So I think that has that's been what I've been trying to contribute to not only the party but to the national discourse and national development, because in the end, that's what it's all about. It's really, you know, like today, for example, one of the things is, you know, we established a party newspaper, the Checklist as well. So I just sent out a sort of blast back to one of our pieces on infrastructure and flooding, which was a panel discussion we had in September. You know, today, I'm sure a lot of people would have, you know, if not just, you know, wasted so much time, but I'm not sure what the damage is throughout the country, but there would have been damage, and we should not be experiencing that. So
one of the things that have been engaging our attention in the past few days, and more so in the past few days, is the issue of this spyware that we now have confirmation, if we didn't have it before, when McDonald Jacob came out and he spoke and said that under the previous commissioner, the police service did acquire some spyware. And he said that, if I may use just the loose language of what he said in the editorial, that some of it, without highlighting any details, he said that some of it was with the police service, the TTPS, and some was with the SSA. In September of last year, that equipment that was in the possession of the police service, the TTPS, went singularly to the SSA. And it's the combination of both, meaning that the police couldn't be spying on anyone without having the equipment that the SSA had. And nor could the SSA have been spying without having anything from the other half of it, the other component from the TTPS. Now that we've established that, in fact, that there is spyware out there, it's incontrovertible that spyware is being used in some form or fashion, or it is potentially it can be used now because it's all in the hands of the SSA September into now. The editorial is that it's geared towards targeting journalists and politicians who may have an alternative view to this government and its policies. Having said that, there's a deeper narrative, and I'm saying that because the population, very frankly, possibly may not even be too bothered by the fact that journalists and politicians are being monitored by the police, because it's the man on the street who he's the one with the point of view. He's putting the politicians into power, and he's the person being policed by the police. When our government speaks about it's purely to monitor criminal activity, it makes us wonder whatever data is gathered from the use of the spyware, whose hands is it coming into? Because the opposition leader is saying that since 2018 was the last year that a report was filed from the SSA in relation to the intelligence it gathered. So if it is the report was filed last in 2018, and there are instances of spying taking place according to the UNC now, then where's this data going? Who is receiving the data? And is it that and this may not be a question you could answer, but we have to ask, put into the public space, when the data is gathered, for what purposes is it being gathered if it's not being executed upon? So my question to you is this. Like you said, the opposition has done a marvelous job in terms of exposing that the existence of spyware and it's being used as a tool. But are there any instances that you can refer us to where spyware and intelligence derived out of its use has been focused on government, opposition politicians or journalists or anyone for that matter?
In this round, I have no information that I'm able to share at the moment. However, definitely this is not the first time this has occurred. And you know, one thing that's so amazing about the PNM is that they have no qualms about changing a story completely, about saying, you know, this is red today and tomorrow saying it's blue with a straight face. So in 2010, when then Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar, and hopefully future Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar again, but when she was Prime Minister then and head of the National Security Council, she revealed that under Patrick Manning, President George Maxwell Richards, the Chief Justice Satnarayan Sharma, and his wife, James Filbert, the acting commissioner of police, Keith Rowley, as well as opposition, the opposition before 2010, was being monitored. A whole slew of journalists and so on. And Keith Rowley actually defended Kamla Persad-Bissessar when he was leader of opposition, because Patrick Manning at the time had objected, but Keith Rowley said Kamla Persad-Bissessar did nothing wrong. You can find the article online by Richard Lord in the Trinidad Guardian if you just look it up on Google. It's right there where he said that he was aware that he was being spied on since then, and that it is absolutely correct for Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar to point it out, because you know this is an illegal and unconstitutional use of that equipment. And I am fairly certain that my phone and email was tapped during that period, for sure. And there are indications we have from whistleblowers, and some of these whistleblowers are actually from the cabinet, the current cabinet, but we can't reveal any names. But we have information from whistleblowers about it being used right now. And they kept all this secret, and Keith Rowley was denying that the way he would say it too is that they denied they used Pegasus. But sometimes he will just flat out lie, like when he said he's not closing Petrotrin if you go buy a fridge, repeating it, and then he closed it, right? But the thing is that so he was denying it first, and then when Kamala Prasad yesterday showed that today, was it today? Yes, I think it was today and yesterday, the Israelis were still here and giving training to keep Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force personnel and others on how to use this spyware. And now they've had to admit it, right? So again, after they lie, deny, and then we give more proof, they admit it. So it's here. There's a history of it being used. We have information that we need to verify still, but the information comes from credible inside sources that it is being used right now for nefarious purposes. You mentioned the report, the last report, which was done in 2018, I believe. There's two reports, one in 2017 and one in 2018 for two different bodies. And I forget the different bodies' names, but they have to do with the surveillance, right? Which is the spying. So in the 2018 report, I believe it was, there was 750,000 surveillance. I don't know how they record it, but per surveillance event, let's say, 750,000 surveillance events. And I'm trying to remember the number. It was something like 100 and it resulted in 100 and something criminal leads. 750,000, and then just that much. What was the bulk of those hundreds of thousands of taps for? Why have you say the criminals? You say hits are being done in prison, and you say these people. Why aren't arrests being made? Why isn't the crime statistics going down like they were both times when the UNC was in government? Why isn't it going down in the PNM? Why is it rising? What are you using this for? It doesn't seem like you're using it for fighting crime, because crime is increasing, not decreasing.
Richard Norrie just joined us on the said gentleman. Richard, good afternoon.
Hello. Well, actually, I've been listening to Mr. Meighoo Dr. Meighoo for some time here. And Farid, our flag bearer for the first hour, co-host, Mr. Ali. It's always good when you have a co-host, and you've been learning fast. So, I had the confidence that you could have led us throughout that time all the way up to now. So thanks, Mr. Ali. So the concerns we have about the spyware and whether it could be used to reduce crime. What could I say? We also learned that it's not Pegasus, so it's a different brand if Pegasus is a brand. So it's a different brand, because what we do know is that we were told it costs $1.6 billion, right? And the fact that it costs so much, while people saying it's not Pegasus, it might be something more advanced than Pegasus. So I don't know if anyone has considered that. While we think Pegasus might have been too intrusive, it is possible what they have that we do not know the name of, it could be more effective than Pegasus. So that it's easy to come out and say we do not have Pegasus in this country. They're not saying we do not have any spyware in this country, Pegasus or no other kind that has the operating technology such as Pegasus. That wasn't said, All they say, we can assure you all that we do not have Pegasus. So my question is, since you spent $1.6 billion, what you bought? Could you share with us what you bought? What is the name of it? And what is its capability? Is it more effective or less than Pegasus? And if it is less than Pegasus, then why pay so much money for it? And if that is the case, what would have been the price of the Pegasus? Would the Pegasus have been cheaper? Why pay more for something that will do less? So if it's more than Pegasus, it stands to reason it must be more advanced than Pegasus, right?
Yeah.
If it's if it's more, meaning Pegasus would have been less, then why didn't we go with the Pegasus that is said to be so effective and would have been less? So we'd have had the spyware and we would have saved money. So we need to know. We need to know. And if it's less than Pegasus, I think it's worse. It's going to accentuate the point time and time again, and at a much higher level that capital expenditure. Because I imagine this software would be held as a part of the assets of the country. It wouldn't be held as I don't think it was just a normal expenditure. You could classify it as such. So I think you'd have to classify it as a capital expenditure. And if that is the case, that it is a capital expenditure, how long we intend to keep it for? What would it cost to upgrade? Because with software technology, they don't stay the same way for too long. When you buy a computer today, as you leave the store with it, that becomes the old model. You know that. Because as soon as you move that one, the new one is on its way to take that position where the one you just bought was occupying. Therefore, what it would mean is that we have to upgrade this piece of equipment on a regular basis. And therefore, what it could mean is what would be the cost? What would be the cost of upgrading that technology, which must be done on a minimum on an annual basis?
Yep.
Because the amount of changes that will take place to technology over 12 months, that one could soon be dated if we didn't upgrade it. So we pay 1.6 billion. If it's 10% of that to upgrade it, it's a lot of money. Because normally when they sell those things, you have a fixed recurrent cost, a fixed annual recurrent cost for the upgrade. We would want to know what that figure is too, because that's the only way you could adequately and accurately measure if this expenditure was a good one, because now you have to apply to how many people it would assist the government to bring to justice. And if the numbers remain pretty much the same, then one could craft an argument on the basis that that money could have been much better utilized in creating jobs and creating opportunity for people and applying it to a new sector to help diversify the economy, which would have resulted in employing more people, creating more jobs, increasing the cash flow in society. The multiplier effect would have taken off. We may have reached a place where we could boost exports and generate more forex, all of which would have helped stimulate the economy. Yes, a bit of inflation might have stepped in because people would have been moving from sector to sector when all that money in circulation to get better jobs, and prices would go up too. But there's a better outcome than you're spending the money in a direction where crime remains virtually the same. All the money has gone and nothing majorly has been improved. So to me, these things must be looked at.
Absolutely. And to follow up on what you're saying, I mean, there is an accountability mechanism, which is a legal requirement for reports to be laid in Parliament. So we could see the effectiveness, exactly what you're talking about. Because that report, I just pulled up the details here. So the last report we got, which was in 2018, so it's for 2016 and 2017. Sorry, 2016 and 2017, and there were 755,276 interceptions of speech and data in those years. So if we had, and so to not lay those reports is not only just slackness, it is illegal, right? Because this this surveillance software is supposed to be held to legal accountability, because surveillance software is necessary, and that is why the UNC government, the PP government, put into place the conditions under which it could be used, who can use it, who cannot use it, etc., and then how you have to report when you use it, right? And so who needs a warrant, and who is authorized to use it without a warrant, but then what reporting mechanisms they have to do. So you have all of these supposed to be laid in Parliament every year. So the Minister of National Security is actually breaking the law by not laying these reports in Parliament. And we don't know. Has more surveillance been done year after year? So it was 750,000 then. Is it 1 million now? 1.5 million? 1.5 million? Right? We don't know. Is it more? Is it less? You know, what equipment is being used, as you're saying? You know, there's a report here from the Monk School of, what's it called? Monk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the University of Toronto. And they have a report here which you can get online called Pegasus versus Predator. So those are two spyware software. And there's a dissident, an Egyptian dissident, whose iPhone was doubly infected by both of those softwares. And there's another name, Cytrox. I don't know if Cytrox is related to Predator. It might be. But so while they give a whole report on all the software and spyware being used, they discovered a lot of things about all the domains and IP addresses and the codes, and they reveal it all in the report. And they also reveal which countries have used it and which country they found on this man's phone through that software. And, you know, so you have Ivory Coast, Madagascar, Mali, Saudi Arabia, Serbia, Egypt has most of the Cytrox domains. And the last one on the list is Trinidad and Tobago. And we have two, and they have two Cytrox domains on their list here. So there are two domains that was used for that spyware. And very interestingly, one is called forwardeshoptt.com and the other is called guardian-tt.me. That's strange, Guardian. I don't know about GML and Guardian Media Limited and so forth, what they would have to say about that. But those are the two domains associated with Trinidad and Tobago in the table here in this report at citizenlab.ca. You can check it out. And it's the Monk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the University of Toronto. Pegasus versus Predator. Dissidents doubly infected iPhone reveals Cytrox mercenary spyware. So we've been featuring in the news, again, for the wrong reasons, with that too. So, and this is something which has to now also be thrown into the mix.
Dr. Meighoo, where we are is this, and forgive me, I'm bearing no brief for any particular side when I ask this question. Basically, what you're getting at is the government is engaging in data mining, yes?
Yes,
and
yes.
Right. And this data mining
is it's really spying because data mining is a bit more legal, if you want to put it that way. But yes.
I'm saying.
But it is a nice euphemistic term.
That's right. That's right.
To give it that name, you know, to mining. But what constitute the data that they are mining? People business.
That is it.
Yeah.
But Richard, where I'm getting at with Dr. Meighoo here is the data mining is pointing towards possible criminal misconduct by the government in engaging in gathering personal data on persons and what this information is being used for. If it's an honorable purpose, then the reports ought to be laid before Parliament on a year-to-year basis. And then we ought to see the data as we got this sort of information, and as a result of that information, what we were able to bear fruit is the DPP was able to investigate in certain areas based on the data gathered, and we were able to lay criminal charges, or we didn't need to lay charges. We found out that there was nothing criminal taking place. Mm-hmm. My issue is this. Politicians will be faced with this allegation of spying. Given the era and the age that we live in, this, not just today, this will raise its head in the future, whether the UNC is in power, the partnership is in power down the road. When they do the same, or if they do the same, then the correct procedure and policies ought to be engaged to avoid issues arising by any opposition, whether it will be them in 5 years' time raising issues on the partnership or whatever formula presents itself down the road. My issue is This allegation was raised with Cambridge Analytica and the UNC and the partnership in 2019 November, when Christopher Wiley revealed that there was data mining taking place, intelligence on derived out of the access to telecommunication servers were brought within his reach, and he was and the plan was, or the focus was, in order to profile prospective voters, in order to establish some sort of formula to determine where the polls may be heading. It did involve data mining. Is it that you're saying that Cambridge Analytica was all done with honorable intent, and the rights and the of our citizens weren't violated back then?
Well, now I have to say that I wasn't involved with the Cambridge Analytica team in detail, so I can't answer all the questions, but I will answer what I know and what I can. So first of all, I think a lot of people, first of all, don't know, like that's why I was making the distinction between data mining and spying. Because if you remember when Facebook first came out, it wasn't making any money, right? People didn't, and people weren't sure how Facebook could actually make money. And what Facebook did is that they developed they developed a new form of advertising based on intense data profiling. So every time you sign into an account on Facebook and you click the I agree to the terms of service, and you never read what those 2 pages say, or 3 pages, which everybody does, you just click and go. You are agreeing for Facebook to take that information and not, well, yes, sell it in a sense, but use it for advertisers. So if you've ever tried to boost a post on Facebook, for example, you can choose where the person lives. You can choose what they like, what pages they like, what they don't like, who their friends are, whether they have a credit card, what their income is like. What you have an incredible array of data in Facebook. Social media itself is kind of like a voluntary spying organization. It's where we voluntarily hand over our data. We tell total strangers who our best friends are, what movies we like, what we ate for lunch, breakfast, dinner, who we ate it with, the recipes we used, all kind of thing, right? But we voluntarily do it because they make it addictive, so you get likes and shares, right? And so it's actually quite pernicious on that level. But this is all part of the terms and service of Facebook, right? And political operatives have used this very much. Now, I have done a lot of marketing and work on Facebook and business as well. So I've used it quite a lot, and it's amazing how specifically you can target people. So obviously, firms like Cambridge Analytica and so forth do that in a quite sophisticated way. Now, where the possible illegality comes in, right? So a lot of people made a big deal of it because it's the first time they really understood this is what Facebook does. They didn't realize that Facebook makes them money, that in fact, data is more valuable than oil, right? Your personal data is now the most valuable thing, and it has built Facebook and Google and Amazon, and the biggest companies in the world are now bigger than Exxon and Amoco and BP, right? So these data mining companies are bigger than the oil mining companies right now. So data is the most important thing. And a lot of people did not even realize this was happening and did not realize the interest. So I think a lot of the outrage, it was just at that very fact that they didn't realize. Now, there is a case that was alleged, but as far as I know, it's not being proven, and I don't know, I've not seen any evidence of it, that there was some WASA list that was used, which was private, right? So that may be the case, right? So, but that needs to be investigated and to see who was involved in doing that and whatnot. And if there was something illegal, I have absolutely no problem with the law taking its course and whoever gave that restricted information to Cambridge Analytica. So if it was the case, let that investigation happen. But in terms of general data mining, that is the world we live in. That is the postmodern economy. The current information economy is based on data mining. You know, that's what's happening. So it is different. It is different. What would cross the line is if you took a list that would be the equivalent of, say, breaking into an office and opening a file cabinet and taking, you know, people's records, because that's kind of what it would have been. And that's like old-fashioned espionage, right? Except in a digital way, right? So, but the general thing of data mining was really, it's just the way social media works.
Let us say that the government, for the sake of argument, that the government is spying on us. It's spying on politicians, it's spying on journalists, it's spying on lawyers. And there is data that is being gathered. You're only crossing the line from, if I understand you clearly, and if my understanding of the legislation is correct, when it is that data mining, that information that is derived is used and it leads to criminal misconduct. In other words, the information that is gathered breaches some particular provision of some legislation, whether it be the Interception of Communications Act, or if the information that is derived is used for some other purpose. For instance, let us say there is information that is being used by the person spying to get a head start or a heads up on what government is about to do or what the opposition is about to do. Or, in other words, you're preempting the natural process of things. You're gathering, let us say, let me use a wild example, right?
Let me just add one more thing. Also sharing that information. Because
that makes it even more criminal. Let us say
maybe you legally or according to the legislation, gathered the information because you had a warrant or you were one of the persons authorized without a warrant to do it. But then if you share it with somebody else, you've committed a crime.
I'm saying this, the Central Statistical Office, Sean O'Brien back in 2019, he gave assurances that whatever information that was extracted and came into the public space or came into their hands or derived out of the Central Statistical Office, that information is safe, that it would not be made available to the random public. So whatever they gathered, it's gathered and it will be used in a controlled manner. That is the assurance that was given back in 2019, arising out of Cambridge Analytica. We are yet to see, if it is the government is spying, instances where things are brought before the court, persons are made accountable, or expressions of the law are made in relation to persons who breached or who took advantage of the information that they got in terms of the data mining and use it to the detriment of any person or any institution. This is not a case where we have, for instance, and I'm just pulling an example out of the past, where we have someone in government withdrawing all their investments in Clico and then Clico going bust sometime after. And then there's a public perception that that individual may have had information and withdrew whatever investments they may have had to their advantage. So they use information, know-how to their advantage.
Like insider trading.
If it is we're looking at spyware in the context of persons using that know-how in order to gather information and then doing it for you, making use of that information for a purpose to enrich themselves or to prevent pauperizing of themselves, then we can say that there's an abuse of. But as it stands right now, whatever data mining is being done, whether there's any criminal misconduct involved, the way we operate in this country, we may not know what is done unless we have another government coming into power. Or if it is, there is some whistleblower within the current or the incumbent government who reveals that people within his own government or within his own cabinet or within his own party making use of the information for self-gain. So what protective mechanism does the common man on the street like Richard and myself have in relation to the spying that is taking place, if indeed it is. Now,
Yeah.
that is not a question I expect you'll be able to answer, but I'll use another analogy. For attorneys of law who engage in criminal law practice, your information as an attorney is information, and I'm saying your mobile information, your telecommunication information, that is out there. If Richard has it and he shares it with his colleagues and that spreads, a lawyer has no control over who calls him. Sometimes you may say, and I'm talking from personal experience, I don't know where somebody's calling me from. And it's rude for me to say, Richard, your name is Richard Nori, you're calling me, where are you from? What purpose are you calling me for? Why are you calling me? Who is it that put you on to me, in using colloquial language? Now, sometimes you may be receiving a call from, I don't know, one of the nation's prisons. Is that in itself a criminal offense? So when that information is now gathered, that I'm having a conversation, or any lawyer out there is having a conversation with somebody in the prison, is the offense, the mere fact that you received the call and you carried the dialogue, a criminal offense, or the fact that you carried the dialogue knowing that you're communicating with somebody in the prison? So the spyware, if it's being used to determine or to crystallize whether criminality is taking place, and then what you're doing is an analysis of the information and determining, well, this is something we can act upon, this is something we cannot act upon, this is going somewhere, this is not going somewhere. So there's a weighing of the information, there's a sifting, a siphoning, a filtering process. Then I cannot see the criminality in it, or I cannot see criminal proceedings arising out of any data mining that would have been extracted by the government in making use of the spyware. I guess the real motive is to determine whether there's a hit out on somebody, whether there is some lawyer who's trying to suppress evidence, who is colluding with his client to do something that ought not to be done. My question to you is this. Yes, you're saying that there is spyware there. Whether it's Predator, whether it's Pegasus, Richard is saying he found the $1.6 billion is too much money to spend, it could be utilized, or he seems to be insinuating it ought to be utilized elsewhere until we do a cost-benefit analysis to show what benefits we derive as opposed to the money we put out. My question to you is, if the UNC is highlighting that Pegasus and Predator is here and personnel are being trained in order to make use of this spyware, don't you all see this could be a positive thing that could redound to the benefits of the citizens as opposed to being absolutely negative?
Well,
and secondly,
which is why, that's why we passed the legislation to regulate how it's used. And there's something, ever since the war on terror, there has been assault from the United States, and then it filtered down here into the rest of the world, to an assault on the right of privacy. This is a fundamental human right to your privacy. Faris Al-Rawi, the fired Attorney General, is absolutely wrong to say we have no right to privacy. That is a totalitarian view, what they would call a dystopian view. The state does not have rights over the human being, right? God gave us rights, not the state, right? And that is very, very important. That is a very fundamental aspect of understanding one's human rights, that they are inherent God-given rights, not a present from the state. And whether Keith Rowley or Faris Al-Rawi or even Kamala Prasad wants to give it to you or not. No, these things are inherent. Right? So your right to your privacy shall not be violated unless there is good reason, right? So that's why you need a court order, right? So you need a warrant, just like how you need a warrant to enter somebody's property and so on. So you need a warrant to search, and then there are some cases that the legislation which our government passed, right? The UNC government passed to say that only 3 officers could have the power to intercept communication without a warrant, but they can't share it with anybody else except for themselves, and then and by a legitimate process that would be accountable and would be laid in the report. And that is the Commissioner of Police, not a constable or two or anything, the Chief of Defense Staff, and the Director of the Strategic Services Agency. So the legislation which we passed authorized that. So it's not a matter that the spyware is bad. You're right. I mean, this can and should be a valuable tool in breaking gangs, in breaking terrorism, in breaking transnational crime. But with those, okay, if that one report had 750,000, and that's 2016 and 2017, so you have 18, 19, 21, right, 20, 21, and then we're into 22. So how many millions of interceptions have occurred since then? And what gangs have been broken? What transnational criminal or terrorist plots or whatever? This is what these reports are supposed to tell us. So one is that the mere violation of our human rights to privacy is itself a crime, right? Whether it constitutes a criminal act, I'm not sure about the legal definition of how it violates when it's a fundamental right that's being violated there.
Dr. Meighoo, I get from you, and I understand that the Constitution speaks of a right to freedom of expression, which is 4I of our Constitution, freedom of the press, 4K, or right to respect for private and family life, which is 4C, and 4B, equal treatment of the law. So clearly, this sort of spying impinges, in my view, on these 4 areas: expression, absolutely, press. So if it is reporters and journalists and media people like Richard feel that they're being spied upon and they are being looked upon, then it may curtail and constrain how they express themselves. And that in itself, psychologically and professionally, is an unhealthy thing for democracy. And in no country where democracy and the respect for the rule of law is obeyed, that sort of thing ought to be condoned. But I am saying, and again I say, I'm saying this, I bear no brief for no one. I'm saying that we all are clear on the fact that no right is absolute. The state has a responsibility to ensure that when the journalists speak and when the media people express their opinion, that they do so and they don't contravene anyone else's rights. The same responsibility lies with the politicians, how they interface with the citizenry. So I'm gathering that the spyware, making use of it, contravening potentially persons' freedom of expression, the press.
This is an important thing because it's something the PNM says a lot, and Faris Al-Rawi, when he was Attorney General, used to say a lot. No right is absolute, and you have. While that has some truth to it, but when one curtails the rights, you must have a 3/5 majority. So, and this is one thing that Faris Al-Rawi was circumventing all the time, right? and which we have called him out in court and have had laws struck down because it violated fundamental human rights. And they did not, because when you're going to, because that's the thing in the Constitution, if you are going to violate someone's fundamental human rights to property, to freedom of expression, to their privacy, all the things you had mentioned there, the freedom of religious practice, all these things, if you are going to violate it, you don't just do it willy-nilly. You don't just do it as a cabinet decision. You have to take it publicly and get the agreement of the whole society, that's what the 3/5 majority means. You're getting the whole, because those are the representatives. So you have to get the whole country's agreement to say, yes, listen, we're going to violate your fundamental God-given rights here, but you have to make the case. We need to do it in this limited case, and this is why. And then you debate it in Parliament. And then you say, do you agree that in these cases, we should do that? You don't just do it because Faris Al-Rawi feels so when he's in the cabinet. No. If you are going to have to curtail someone's fundamental rights for whatever reason, for a justifiable reason, then you must justify it. You must go to the parliament, to the public, to the country, and say, we are proposing to violate your rights, your fundamental rights, but for this reason, and only in this case, and this is why, and we need your support in this. So you need to make a good case. That's what a democracy is. That's what differentiates us from a totalitarian dictatorship, where you don't have any rights and the government can decide you don't have rights to privacy anymore. And if I feel you make an expression that I don't like, then I can curtail it because I feel you are not being responsible. No, it's not that. The parliament, the population, the parliament which represents the population must make that decision. We are not a cabinet dictatorship, an executive dictatorship. We are a parliamentary democracy. Gentlemen, I have another meeting at 6 p.m. and I see we're at 6 p.m. So I'm going to have to ask you if I can take my leave at this point.
Okay. Granted.
Dr. Meighoo, we want to thank you again for your contribution, as always. And we look forward to you coming back on and discussing other current issues as we move forward. We'll be doing this a lot more often. Thank you again. I don't know if Mr. Ali has any final words here before.
We look forward to having you again, Dr. Meighoo, and we look forward to developing this dialogue that we've created today. Hopefully, by the time we meet again, there will be some concrete information as to the government spying and doing things that they ought not to be doing, rather than simply information that they're spying.
And if you can find out, by the way, if you can find out for us, by the way, what is the name or what we purchased, that might be helpful. And what is the capability of it, what the capabilities are.
Yeah, let's hope the speaker allows the question. We will file it, definitely.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Meighoo.
I think we're supposed to have another guest.
Yes, we have another
coming on any second now.
Yes. Well, at 6:15, we're supposed to have Mr. Clarence Mendoza, chairman of the Concerned Parents Movement of TNT, and the former first vice president of the NCPTA. So, would you like to take a break before we continue?
Let's do that. Let's take a 5 minutes break and we come back and prepare ourselves for that.
Great.
Give a friend of me in the meantime.
Power 102 Digital.
Yeah!
We sound like home.
Lock these savings at Furniture Plus. Shop and save big on Serta, Sealy and Therapeutic mattresses. Plus, get $1,600 off Sealy adjustable base. Accessories also available. Check press and social media for details.
Power 102 Digital. Streaming 24/7 on power102fm.com and on the Power 102 Digital app. Power 102 Digital.
Okay, let me check in with my hosts and find out if they're ready to continue. Our special guest is online. Shamila, Raheem. All right.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Welcome to Power 102 Digital.
Thank you very much.
I have with me Richard Nori and Fareed Ali, our hosts of the program.
Hold on, let me put on my video. How rude of me. Sorry.
There you go. Richard, Fareed?
Thank you, Daddy Mac. Fareed, hello and good day, Shamila, Raheem.
Hi, good day. Thank you very much for having us.
Yes, no problem. Anytime. It's our pleasure. We have Mr. Fareed Ali, co-host. I would allow him to lead the conversation, but I would start by asking you to share with us first, for our listeners, I'm getting a sound.
Yeah.
A sound
Daddy?
is coming from me?
Yeah, I think when you came on, Shalima, we started to pick up that sound.
Mute and we will know. Mute your set and we would see. Just press the mute knob.
Yeah.
Right.
This coming from Shalima. Okay. Well, talk with her.
It's on now. Yeah.
So you can chat with her, and when she responds, well, we'll have to deal with that.
Yeah. So, Shamila,
Yes.
yeah, it's coming from you. When you mute, it's gone.
Maybe it's my microphone. Would you like? I'm on a laptop. Would you like me to join on my phone?
Yeah, that's fine.
Perhaps we can try that.
It. So what we could do, because the pixel on the phone mightn't capture her as lovely as she looks here. And I imagine she might want to, whenever I go on the phone, as terrible as I look, it makes me look so much more times terrible. So, I wouldn't want her to suffer that at all. That would be a terrible attack. We like this one. This is really very nice. But we can manage this. What will happen when we are talking? Yeah, you can mute, and when you are speaking, then you can unmute.
Okay, so we're going on at 6:30, right?
No, we can go on as of now.
Oh, Mr. Mendoza is not on yet?
No, I haven't seen him come online yet. But he will, when he joins, I'll let you guys know.
Oh, are you throwing me out into the lion's den all by myself, right?
There's some lions without teeth here.
Serious? Yeah. Gosh, I listen to you guys. You guys are...
No lions.
Let me refrain my comments.
Yeah. So I will ask our wonderful and kind Mr. Ali to lead us off in this conversation. Mr. Ali.
Mr. Raheem, welcome to our program. It's such a pleasure to have you here with us today. Maybe we can start off by you sharing with us some of the work that you've been doing. And then we could engage
you very much. And good afternoon to all your listeners. Some of the things we have been doing is strongly advocating for the rights of families and especially our young ones at school. So some of the things we have done in the past is meeting with schools, principals, PTA units, and getting a feedback as to what is taking place in their schools, how we can help, how we can assist, reaching out to families during the past 2 years for the lockdown. A lot of families were faced with economical difficulties and problems at home and all that. So we try to reach out to families, assist wherever we can, provide meals, hampers, things like that. So different members would work differently on different areas. So those are some of the things we have been doing. We were advocating heavily for knowledge on the vaccine and all that, to bring clarity in terms of educating our parents. So those are some of the things we were working on and continue to work on different things.
And if I can interject here, Mr. Mendoza is on with us right now. Welcome, Mr. Mendoza, to the afternoon Power Drive.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon to your listening audience.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to have you, Mr. Mendoza.
It's a pleasure.
You joined us just a few minutes late, but you're on time. Better late than never.
Well, I was told 6:10, so I say, well, okay.
All right. We having a discussion with Mr. Raheem. So she was saying to us that some of the work that she and her organization were doing were more or less looking into the rights of families and young persons over the past 2 years, and seeing in what way they can assist with the difficulties arising out of the pandemic and its effects. Mr. Raheem, I want to guide you in a different direction, because we've reopened schools in the past week, and some of what is carried in the nation's editorial, the newspaper, can potentially be a disturbing thing if it is we consider it in the context of the nation's children. In the past week, I have read in the newsprint that the National Primary Schools Principal Association, Carleen Hayes, she was very vociferous and very loud in the time he put on, and she's saying that schools have been reopened, but a lot of funding has to be dedicated towards cleaning and ensuring that the regulations are obeyed, not just by the students, but generally on the school's compound. Now, the money that the principals association is focusing on, they're saying that a lot of money funding is lacking in order to deal with deep cleansing and deep cleansing in terms of furniture, deep cleansing in terms of preparing the schools, the physical layout, the structure, to allow for the health of the children and the health of those on the compound to not be compromised. What is your institution's input? I mean, what is your view in terms of whether schools ought to have been reopened fully at this stage? In the light of, we are now seeing an uptick in COVID-19 cases in Barbados and in St. Lucia, so much so that they've introduced curfews. Are you of the view that schools ought to have been reopened fully, as it has in the past week?
You would always have mixed emotions coming out from parents. Some want their children to go to school, some don't want their children to go to school. In our view, we thought that some more consideration should have been given to the younger ones. We didn't think preschools were to be rushed into this process. At least some primary level, and you continue with your secondary level. In terms of fundings for school, that has always posed as a major problem for schools because of the protocols put in place in terms of sanitizing and keeping things clean and to adhere to the rules and regulations. Most of the fundings tend to go through that area. So in terms of infrastructure and all that, it is lacking there. Mr. Mendoza as well could share some light on this matter in terms of, he being more actively involved in the schools and visiting schools will get a better picture and a first-hand knowledge in terms of what principals face on a daily basis. But I know fundings pose a major problem for most schools. And then, when you get students being tested in the school and all that, sanitizing needs to take place. And I don't think it comes from the government, it comes from the principals.
The principal could only spend the money that has been allocated to him.
That's right.
And if the funding wasn't increased or funding wasn't, special provisions weren't made in order to treat with the sanitizing, then the already limited funding is going to be utilized in another area and the children are going to suffer in a different way.
Correct. You're right.
Did your organization bring this to the attention of the stakeholders, or did you raise it sufficiently that the stakeholders would know that they ought to do certain things and prepare the schools infrastructurally, institutionally before you reopen?
We have been.
We have been on that level.
Okay, we have been doing, and we've been asking for dialogue with the Ministry of Education. So we are yet to be included in stakeholders meeting, which we would like to be part of, because we are on the ground, we meet with schools and get feedback all the time. So it is important for us to be part of it. And I would like Mr. Mendoza to come in and share some, of his views on this matter as well.
Until he does that, some of the observations that are being met is that simple things like desks and tables and chairs on the school compound, we don't have enough of that in order to accommodate the necessary social distancing that would assist in avoiding any spread or potential spread or any exposure to the virus and its effects. Have your organization in any way voiced its concern over the lack of spacing?
We have done so on different programs, different media houses. We have done so through, the newspaper, different channels. We have done so. But like I said, we need to be part of the stakeholders meeting. That is important so that we can bring our concerns to the minister directly.
And the only way to do so is to get the attention of the parents and the children. Have you all been engaging the parents in some way, in whatever. What ways have you all been engaging the parents in order to get them on board with what with your direction?
We have regular meeting via Zoom where we invite our parents. We invite all our schools' parents to come on board, and they share their concerns. They share their problems with us, and we try to lend solution accordingly. So we have been engaging them, and it's increasing rapidly weekly.
I'm also reading where the ministry is calling on parents when it is your children are experiencing flu-like symptoms that you ought to keep your children away. And also the ministry has been mandating that in order to get your child back into the system, meaning attending classes, you must produce basically a medical clearance certificate from any registered medical practitioner. I would imagine, seeing that you're engaging with parents, what is the feedback you're getting from parents in relation to being able to satisfy that requirement? Because it comes at a personal cost, given where we are now in terms of limited funds in households, uptick in food prices. There's less disposable income in the hands of parents. So these parents will be engaging in, naturally they'll be sharing with you all the limited money that they have to do so much more.
That's right. And it is challenging for parents.
In relation to, in what stance have your organization taken in relation to putting the government to task with regard to supporting the students in acquiring medical certificates at the state's expense?
I would like Mr. Mendoza to answer the question, please.
Richard, I don't know if Mr. Mendoza is with us.
Yes, he is.
Mr. Ali.
Mr. Mendoza.
Yes, sir. I've been listening, and I'm hearing the questions you are asking. Your questions are in order. Are you hearing me clearly?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Great. I will start with your last question, and then I will proceed up the ladder. In terms of the organization, the Concerned Parent Movement, and our parents acquiring such information and such help from the government, our parents were guided to go to our health centers so they can get such documentation so their child can return to school. We know that, and we will have passed that message on to parents that they can go to their health centers within their community with their child and get such documents to assist them in getting their child back in school. Just recently, we had an issue with a parent and their child getting back into the school. It was the same thing. They were told one thing, and then we give them the necessary information, and they got through. They went to the necessary health center and got the document to put them back in school. Okay. In terms of infrastructure within the school system, I've probably visited 90% of the schools in Trinidad and Tobago. Primary, secondary, and those that need help, the assisted schools, we visited them. And Ms. Colleen Haynes is quite right. The Principals Association is quite correct with it when we talk about fundings for our schools. And we must look at fundings for primary school. Secondary school do get funding, but not all primary schools get funded. If your primary school is under 300 students, you don't get anything from the government. You may get a little handout. As long as your school is under 300 students, PTA parents have to fight to assist the principal in keeping the school up to date with whatever they may need. And we continue to ask the question, why after 2 years of lockdown, that we are struggling with our principals for them to get funding to do the minor repairs within the school system. We have complained about MTS, because MTS has complained to us. They're understaffed. They're badly understaffed. We've made it clear to the Ministry of Education, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, that if MTS alone cannot handle the workload, then bring in some contractors, bring in private contractors, cleaning contractors to mandate and keep our school in a clean manner. We cannot continue year after year waiting till when school closed for 2-3 months to rush in there in the last week to clean or fix a toilet. It's ridiculous. It's been going on government after government, and we are saying it's time to stop. Time for that to stop. Time for the government to look at schools within regions, contractors within the necessary regions to maintain the schools. Not bringing someone from Toko to fix a school in Cedras. Ridiculous at the last minute. And then these contractors don't get paid. Hardwares don't get paid. Principals will tell you that. They will get their vote of $400,000. And time they pay the hardware, what they owe, they have nothing to do, nothing with. You see? And then again, nobody is talking about it. But the hardwares and them are fed up. Contractors are fed up. They don't want to work for the Ministry of Education. When you tell them, hey, boy, I know such and such school, they got some repairs, apply for it. They say, oh, no. They don't want no part. Why? Because they don't get paid. And it's a reality out here in society that people are not aware of. Only the contractors who is bawling and crying and have to sell their vehicle and mortgage their home to pay the bills, you know?
My question to you is this: are you of the view that reopening schools at this time fully was premature, and that time ought to have been spent in ensuring that the physical space was prepared and ensure that the schools were given the necessary subvention, and that if a larger share of the subvention would have been given, then that put in place. So, and then the staff being, or the management team at the school, and I say management team, it's specifically down to the principal. The principal has the material, the machinery, the mechanism in place in order to prepare his or her school. So when the reopening takes place, then every school can identify, well, we're in a position to reopen before they do. And to collate the opening in such a way that all schools and their principals give the okay to say, okay, I think we're ready now, we could do this. Was that done? In your knowledge, was that done, or was it simply that the ministry made a declaration, they rule by decree, and opened the schools a week ago?
Well, for real, let's be real. It's for years. Ministry of Education has thrown the buck into the principal's arm and tell them run with it. Clearly. And for the reopening of schools here this April here, should have never been. It's premature. January, premature. And I'm saying it again, we, the concerned parent movement, continue to advocate for our children and our parents, our teachers, everyone. And we said to the Ministry of Education, now is not the time to open up the school and throw the children to the wolves at all. We see what's happening. We ask for mental health to be taken into consideration first and foremost of our children, our teachers, our parents, everyone. Everyone who has gone through this pandemic has mental issues now. And we smiling and walking around like normal. We are not normal. We are seeing where our husbands is abusing our wives, girlfriends are being abused, bodies are being found everywhere. It's not normal. It's not normal for our children to be fighting every day in a different school. It's not normal. So we have asked the Ministry of Education, along with the Ministry of Health, to put together a program for this 3 months here on mental health issues within the school system. Hire some SSSDs, hire some school social workers and some guidance officers on a 3-month contract. Hire them now. What are you waiting on? Waiting for the system to get worse? Mental health is a serious issue. Now, when we talk about the infrastructure of our schools, we are know it clear. The Ministry of Education over the years done nothing. They may not like what I'm saying, they don't like when I speak, but I'm telling you the truth because I'm in the schools. They're not in the schools. They are going by word of mouth. They need to get up and visit schools that need fixing, not the ones that look nice and you go there and the camera follow you. Go to the schools that need the assistance. That's what we are saying to the minister and her technocrats. Those schools are in bad shape. Imagine a toilet system in a whole school is down for over 9 years. So nobody cares. Only Mr. Mendoza and his team must go and come and tell you, hey, miss, these toilets are in bad shape. What to do? They board it off with plywood. That's what they do. You see? So when we ask the Ministry of Education for infrastructure work, cutting the grass, this whole 2 years gone, not a water tank has been emptied. Some principals are voracious in getting these things done. Water tanks need to be cleaned once a year. 2 years, your water tank just there. Children coming to drink that same water. But nobody looks at that. School-based management is another thing in our school system. Our secondary schools, we have the school-based management system. It works for some it don't work at all. Some principals don't even invite you. They don't even call you, it's a school-based management meeting next week. Come out, let's talk about what we can do for the school. They don't do that. So some principals are to be blamed. And when we pass in the blame game, parents get blamed too. They have to take some blame in what's taking place in the country with their children. Not just the Ministry of Education, but our parents. You see?
What is the connect? What is the connect, if you can answer, what is the connect between the Parent Teachers Association and principals in your experience? Is there a sufficient connect that the principal hears the voice of the PTA sufficiently that the principal carries the sentiments of the PTA to the Ministry of Education, and vice versa?
Let me clear that up for you and everyone who is listening. When we use the word PTA, it's an acronym under the NPTA. Clear. If you are a PTA, you are under the umbrella of the NPTA. Okay? PTOs, PTCs, and all the other P's and L's, they are on their own. But when you come under the PTA, you're under the NPTA. And I'm telling you from history, principals do not like the NPTA. They never did. All we tried to have a conversation, we could have never had a conversation. It's only until 2017, when I became the first vice president of the National Council, that we started to reach out to principals, the principal association, and have dialogue with them so we can get principals' involvement with PTAs in the school system. Now, PTAs are very valuable to principals, but some principals use PTA to their advantage. They do. Same thing with the PTO. You cannot have a PTA with one person sitting at a head table. How could that be? And this is the thing that's going around the country for years. So when we talk about PTA, we talk about the NPTA. When we talk about PTO, PTC, and so forth, we are talking about individual organization who is trying to keep their school in the best manner they can. And they're doing a very good job. So we can talk about denominational schools compared to government schools. And when we talk about that, and you talk about PTA, and you talk about PTO and PTC, and you look and you evaluate the difference. What's happening in your denominational school? Whether it's a Presbyterian board school or a Catholic school, you see the difference. You see that the violence in those schools are not as rampant as the government schools. You see, although they don't have all the funding that a government school may get, you still see that they are keeping their school in order. We visit Tobago, and if you visit Tobago schools, you will see Tobago schools, all as it is, every year it gets a touch of paint. You'll be surprised you visit a school in Tobago, it's clean. Why is that the same here? Why MTS or whoever it may fall on have to wait to give out a contract 2 weeks before the school open for you to change a door or you to fix a window? Ridiculous. There's too many schools incomplete in our country. Taxpayers' money. 80 and 90% complete.
The firepower is in the hands of the parents, and I'm not trying to be, for want of a better word, seditious here, but can't you all, having the information that you have, seeing the detritus on sea level, engage the parents in such a way to have them hold the ministry to task by whatever means they think would have that effect?
Yes.
And what have you all done? I'm not trying to
No, you are correct. You're
what have you all done to get them to that point? Because we're talking about this, and this conversation may be had in 6 months' time, in a year time again, and nothing has changed.
That's correct.
So then you need to be able to mobilize and create a nexus between the discoveries that you've made when you visited all these schools and getting the parents to do what the principals are falling short of, which is basically, to put it nicely, get hold the ministry to task. What have you all been able to do? Are you getting resistance from the parents in supporting you all?
No. We're not getting resistance from parents. And we must look at the demographic of our country and know that in some regions, we will get parents who can do carpentry, who can come out and assist. Some regions, we are not getting that. And what we have done in 2017, coming into office, is create what we call the bank for our parents, a skills bank, where we collect all the skills that our parents bring into the PTA. If you are an electrician, if you are a plumber, whatever, we produce a skills bank. So that can assist your school within your region, within your area. In doing that, the Land and Building Committee was created. So we are moving forward from the Land and Building Committee to a Land and Building Board, where we could assist the Ministry of Education in getting these schools repairs. We're not looking to build schools. Our parents looking to assist in the repairs of the schools within their community. And I think that's something that the government must look at. If your school is in your community and you take it upon yourself with your PTA, that your school has to look good, like the members in Tobago, it will be done. But there's no communication, is nothing like that. In 2018, we would have moved with Dr. Lovell Francis throughout the country. I have never seen another minister to step up to the plate and do such. We were visiting schools, taking notes of the repairs that's needed, and getting it done. Today, that's not happening.
I read in the newsprint, the Guardian newspaper, Wednesday the 27th, today's date, 2022, an article by Annalisa Paul. What was carried in that narrative is simply this. Parents are saying that they're now faced with two options. They either keep the child unsafe at school or keep the child uneducated at home. So you're in a catch-22 situation. It's unsafe at school or uneducated at home. Yep. One parent went so far to say that she, in recognizing the fact that there aren't enough benches to social distance in the classroom, that she volunteered to make a bench available for her child, and instead she needs ministry approval. So if it is what you're suggesting is your skills base, your bank of carpenters and persons willing to get involved directly in your school is limited in some areas and greater in others.
Yes.
You haven't addressed the issue of whether the ministry is going to approve of you utilizing your own skills-based technical people to do the work that ought to be done in the schools that the ministry can't do. Have you considered, do you have the ministry support in providing, in you providing your own labor?
Of course, yes, we did. Through our school SS3s for secondary school, we would have wrote to them. The ministry would have okayed for us to repair all the desks, all the benches that were bad in these schools. Welders from right there would have welded those chairs back together. We would have come in and put paint on it. It's the ministry who gave the okay. So we would have repaired schools, and it's not just one school, but it's getting these parents to come out there. And like I said again, it depends on your region. And I'm speaking for the Victoria region. In the Victoria region, that would have taken place. It would have taken place in the southeastern region, where the PTA would have come in the school, they'd have repaired the toilets, repaired the doors by means of the principal and writing the letter to the SS3 within the region and getting the okay to do these things. Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead.
Let me intervene a bit, Mr. Mendoza. I just want to go back to a part where you said that principals never like the PTA representatives and PTA. Why you think they don't like you all?
Well, it will go back to 2009, 2011, where we'd have asked umpteen times of our executive to meet with Principals Association. The only way for us to move forward as a PTA body, we needed the principals on board. And clearly, our constitution debars principal to a limit. It tells our principals that you are only ex officio. You cannot vote. You don't really have a say. These sort of things shouldn't even be in the constitution. It shouldn't be something that you tell your principal, who is also a parent, who also have children in the school system, that they don't have a say. And we speak out on that umpteen times that it should be changed. We did constitution reform there in 2017, only to get it shut down at the last minute, because principals is something we want on board. We want our principals to be on board, and they were coming on board. We were having conversations.
Why would they not like you for the reason you have outlined? Who created the constitution? Because behavior. Hold on. How they feel about you all will determine how they behave, and how they behave will determine how they support you all or not.
That's correct.
And therefore, you have to drive to the root of the problem, not the surface.
Well,
and therefore, if you could find what the root cause of the problem is, you'd be in a better position to attempt towards solving it. And I'm trying to advance the conversation to that place so that even if we have to do something from here, we'll be able to do so once we understand the root cause of the problem.
That's good.
Now, what you have outlined, it must be deeper than that, because it's not your problem.
That's good.
Or was it your body that established the constitution that governed the relationship between your body and principals? I guess no, because if it was, and you are saying principals should be able to participate more than just being an ex officio member, then you could have easily gone and changed that. So the fact that you're speaking out against it informs me that you didn't do that. So was it the government that created that type of guidelines, or what is your constitution to manage the relationship between your body and the principals?
No, sir. And again, I have to go back to what you just said.
Yeah.
Me personally was not on the executive of the National Parent Teachers Association. I was the president of a unit, and the units compile what they want to see change in the constitution. That was never taken into consideration. So here we are today with a constitution that you created for yourself. And we are saying you, the executive body of the National Council of Parent Teachers Association, dating back for 2009, 2010, 11, 12, 13, that they didn't want to change that. They didn't want principals' involvement in the PTA to that limit.
Well, you just give us a rich insight then. Now I understand why principals may not like you all.
That's correct.
Because your body created a constitution that limited the participation of principals.
Of course.
And well, now, and what's your role again in it right now? You're
right
the executive.
Yeah. Right now, I'm not on the national executive. We are before the court. We are before the court trying to get an executive that could serve the people. We are before the court.
Right. So that, and are you attempting to get on the executive post the court matter?
I was on the executive. We would have 2017, I was elected the first vice president of the National Council. We would have done the necessary homework in getting the constitution to where we want. We would have brought attorneys in. And then it was all shut down at the General Council meeting. So it's on the shelf there at this point in time.
Then I'd like to suggest, under the democratic system that we operate, you must be operating with a slate or a team, or however it works.
That's good.
Right? What you should have on your slate, given what you have said, you should put out there that if your slate should form the executive next time around, post the court matter, you all are going to make sure and attempt to adjust the constitution to give the principals greater involvement and participation, so that you'll get more of those people. As you said, principals are parents too, you know. And and that should assist you to get in and effect the change, and you would have fixed one major problem. And then you can move from there together with a united front to solve the problems in the interest of the children and in the interest of the country in the future. Because the children eventually would take over all the jobs, what we are doing now, what the politicians are doing, and every other job in the country. So if we could fix it from now going forward, we'd have a better future. Now let's go to COVID.
But Richard, before you go to COVID,
Sure.
before you go to COVID, I just want to respond to what you just said, and you're quite correct.
Indeed.
I want to believe that you have our manifesto on your desk there.
Oh,
because
no.
No. That is exactly what we have.
But in drilling to the root cause could help me get an insight to what the real problem is, and we could seek towards and work towards fixing it.
That's good.
And I heard you. I listened for quite some time, and that's why you may think now I have such a document before me. I think we are closer to what the problem is now, and I think substantially in part listening to you on that side of it, I think you also have in your hands a significant percentage or part of the solution. So it's to see how it works out when you go to the next executive election. So let me allow you to respond, but I do not have such a document before me at this time. I hope you furnish us with one at some point in time.
That's correct. That's correct. Well, but you see, Richard, I know you are hitting the nail on the head. And Trinidad and Tobago, at this point in time, we are crying out for our youths. Our youths are in serious bondage. They don't know if they're going to come. But I would answer your question now on COVID. I'm listening to you. I'm all ears.
Right. So with COVID, and Ms. Raheem spoke on it early on as well. She said that there was a sort of mixed reaction. Some parents wanted their children out, some didn't, and as a result, you have the two groups mixing together now, who wanted to be there and who, well, didn't want to be there in terms of from the parents' perspective, not the children.
Yes.
What you have now is, I always try to strive for solutions, right? What could have been a proper mix, given that some parents wanted their children out to try to get, the type of education they're entitled to and deserve? And what could have been done to educate those in a way that they could have still participated with their peers and socialized, because socializing is part of education and self-development as well. What could have been put in place to come up with a reconciliated position for both to work? I don't know if Ms. Raheem will take that or Mr. Mendoza, but sometimes when you see a problem, you must approach that problem with a potential solution in your next hand. So one hand, you have the problem, in the other hand, you have the potential solution. What was or could be the potential solution you would have had to manage that mixture?
Clearly, a blended learning for our students. We give the parents the option of homeschooling. These are the options that is on the card. If you don't want to get your child vaccinated, or you yourself, and you choose to homeschool your child, give that option. During those 2 years, a lot of parents have went back to homeschooling. You see? A lot of parents were forced to homeschool because they could not afford a device or afford connectivity. Or even if they can, they could not have gotten it to where their location. So homeschooling was a thing that kicked off. And the Homeschooling Principals Association, they are working fine. They are working fine. So, these are solutions that could have been used, but we must not shelf it because we don't know what tomorrow brings. Right now, we are seeing what's happening. And I think a blended learning is something that should be looked at. I don't think we should think that we are back to normal and all our children in the class hugging up and sharing a drink. I think we must look to the future. And our children are looking to the future. No one is speaking to them and asking them the necessary questions. But I think it will come a time that we all must sit with the youths and find out what they want.
All right, but it's true, it's good to get that information too, because that could help inform the parents' decisions for their children. But on the other hand, you don't want it to be too weighted from the child's perspective, because sometimes you can over-empower them at that level, and then you create a situation where they start to believe the way they want it is the way it ought to be, and you create a new problem. So you have to manage that, but their input is very equally important as any other. So I think you're very right. you need to sit down with those students and find out what they think is in their best interest. However, I do believe that parents ultimately should always have that final say in making those sorts of decisions for their children, because under the law it's too young for them to take such decisions over their own lives. So parents should have to hold on to that ultimately. So homeschooling, would homeschooling be sufficient for the child to grow up in a balanced way, which is more of what the society needs? Because when you have a child that grows up into a young adult and adult who was not given a balanced type of education, which means mixing with their peers, playing some sports, studying heavily in academics, and doing a number of different things, and at the end of that, you conclude you have a well-rounded child or student or citizen of the country. When you have children for the future, the next wave of youngsters who are going to become young adults, many of whom would have been denied the opportunity to socialize with their peers and so on, and therefore they grow up with this void within them. What type of future we could look forward to at their hands? Would homeschooling be enough to fill that?
No. When we talk about homeschooling, we are talking about your child at home, just home alone. You see, you have to have other academic activity for the child. Join a gym, whether it's martial arts, a cricket team, a football team. So you socializing. You are socializing. So at the same time...
But if you do that, Mr. Mendoza, you're exposing the child to groups of people again. And if you could do that, then it's better you expose them to school. What's the difference?
The difference here is your martial art instructor with his team, everyone that's there, you know what they're about. You know if they have COVID, you know if they don't have COVID. You see? The West Indies cricket team, you see what they are doing. They're playing cricket. They have an enclosed area. Everybody's checked out. Everybody's fine. Let's play. You see?
So going back to safe zones.
Well, of course, we have to have something. We have to have that because we want the interaction and the public relations skills to come out.
Right.
You see? So we have to put these mechanisms in place, the psychological effect that it may have on some, it may not have on others.
Then why did you all recommend then having some schools or a part of some schools a mixed a hybrid situation? Because since you have two type or perhaps three versions of parents as it relates to COVID, some don't mind the children going, some don't want the children to go, some don't know if they want them to go or not to go. So they're in between. Why we didn't, I don't know how costly it might have been. But you could say, okay, you're coming to school for those parents who want their children only to be among vaccinated children. You go on that side, and they get to mix with other children the same way, like if you go to the gym or martial arts, and it's controlled. And so you divide the school in such a way, just as we did the country the other day with safe zones. And would that have been an unreasonable thing to do in the interest of moving the country forward and keeping the children educated and safe?
Richard, I love this forum this afternoon because let me tell you something. What you are saying there, teachers are listening to us and they are vexed right now. Reason why? Tutor, plain, is either you're in the classroom or you're home. So for us to make a proposal like that, tutor going to jump up and say, well, what Mr. Mendoza is saying, he's not paying us. But we put proposals on the table, we sat with tutor, we have conversation with tutor, and that is something we looked at. When the pandemic first struck in March and we were locked down March of 2020, we had a meeting 2 weeks after. Tutor executive members along with us. And that was the question would have put to tutor. Will you all take a cut in pay? We asked them that, would you all willing to take a cut in pay since we're going online? Are you all willing to do that? And they couldn't answer. Reason why they couldn't answer is because they have a contract. They have the agreement with the Ministry of Education on how they're going to get paid. They say they're owing them since 2012. So when we put these proposals to them, they're not coming out to teach anyone half day and half day online. They're not doing that. And this is what they asked for. The Ministry of Education, on the other hand, saying we cannot afford to outfit our schools with these systems. While other schools are doing it, the prestige schools are doing it, they have the big boards up in there and so forth, and they're willing to work with their students. So that's why we going back to the homeschooling for those who cannot afford. And you'll see where the Ministry of Education would have said clearly, you can come and pick up a package at the gate. Package to do what? Teach yourself? Understand where we lost?
You said earlier on, the government does not really pay much attention to a school that has a population of less than 300.
That's
Why?
correct. That's
Why?
how the system works. They don't get any funding from the government. They may get some soap and some toilet paper. They don't get any funding from the government. It's written, it's there.
And the preschools or the primary schools that have more than 300, what they receive?
Some receive approximately 10,000. It depends on how they're spending and the population. The population reach 400. Some primary schools have 700 and 500 students in it. You know.
So the government has that out there as an incentive to encourage primary schools to take on more students?
I'm not saying that at all, but that's what's happening.
It is not a strategy in such a way. But then it would be discriminatory to say ignoring a school that had 300 or less. What about those children? Are they children too?
They are children too. So you will see where those primary schools with 250 are now trying to reach the 320. So the SS1, when he comes here, oh God, they will have to help you. You understand?
What about equality and the conversation of parity? If you know you are running this school, and especially if your bodies align well with the principals, and they are 300 and less, your body and others supposed to get together and do what is required, protest respectfully and professionally, to highlight that school across there is getting X and that one, and we are under the government as well, but we are not getting anything. What about the children here? And they citizens of this country too?
You are quite correct, Richard. And yes. What you are saying there is happening in the southeastern region for the last 9 years. And we advocate and nothing has been done.
Then what has to happen? When you know, there's a saying, when events change, plans change. If the activity you all have been engaged into for quite some time has not produced the type of results you would have liked to have had, then what do? You change the activity. You either get more people to come out, or you carry the activity somewhere else. But you have to do something that you did not do before if you intend to produce a different outcome.
That's correct.
So that again, your activities have to become consistent with movements in the external environment. Meaning, as the government shifts their position and react differently to new things, you have to become different too, so that you will be viewed as a new development and activity as we go into the future, to be always considered as priority. So when the government is sitting down to take decisions, they will say if you leave them out, they will switch and turn this way, and next thing is a new problem. So take care of that before, you know, they morph or evolve into something else. Your job is one where you have to study the students and the teachers, and to improve the system. And if the passion is there, and it sounds as though you have that within you, and Mr. Raheem as well, then you'll have to continue to always look at new ways to do what you're doing now. Even if it is effective right now, you can't say we'll just sustain this. You have to sit down and say what more we could do to get it to become even more effective in the next 2 or 3 months, so that you'd always be 2 or 3 steps ahead of where the government mindset might be at any given time.
You are quite correct, Richard. And again, I have to say, we have an act of parliament. And a lot of people don't know that the organization is one few. I think maybe the only organization with the act of parliament that governs us and guides us. And when you have members who are clear that they're not going to go down this certain road because you're collecting $250,000 from the government, we have a problem. And Mr. Mendoza don't have no problem with that. You see, so I'm outspoken and I want to see the best for our children and our schools in the nation. But if an entity is sitting there or a leader is sitting there and knowing that if I open my mouth, we would not get our subvention anymore, we have a problem.
And
it's not about the subvention.
Because again, that is like victimization. If you speak out what should be spoken out about, you're going to suffer some kind of negative consequence.
That's correct. That's correct.
The system is not working as it should. And again, depending on how you react to that and deal with it, would determine what the government could and cannot do in the future. But I know our producer had to go all the way down to the southern side to call Mr. Ali to ask any final question and to give you all closing comments.
Ms. Raheem?
Mr. Mendoza and Ms. Raheem, you all have been doing a good job. But I encourage you all to continue to put pressure on the Ministry of Education, because I cannot see the dialogue changing in the short term. And I'll be frank with you, I'm not even seeing it changing in the medium term. Because until you can get the parents to engage the ministry in a manner that the ministry cannot back down, you can't depend on principals doing your bidding for you. The principal is an instrument of the Ministry of Education, and the principal has to execute function, otherwise he will be removed. So when you say that the principals sometimes don't like the PTA, it could simply be because the PTA is not carrying the mandate of the Ministry of Education. In fact, it's holding the Ministry of Education to task. So that relationship, that reciprocity that you would like is utopia, is a dream. All I'm saying is this, and my final comment is I share what you express, but my feeling is that you need to develop some sort of strategy to keep the ministry accountable, and don't do it through the principal if it is you're getting resistance from your principal. And if that means picketing the Ministry of Education, then you have to do that. If that means having the children stand outside of the school for some time, I ain't saying keep them on the road and involve them in a protest that could bring harm to them, but delaying the entry into the school for 15 minutes, just enough to disrupt the system to the extent that you can cause positive civil disobedience, then do that. But you're not going to get results by simply highlighting things that are obvious. We've been that was so. Some of the problems you're describing may have existed years ago, and it may exist years down the road. If it is, you don't take it to the next level.
Well said. But however, we are not on the bandwagon on the principles. What we are saying clearly is what's been happening in the past, and our principals will come clean and say, Mr. Mendoza, this is what we need to see, not what they used to see. And that's why we speak out against what's taking place. And we're going to continue to do that. But the whole idea of moving from where we were to where we want to go is based on our elections. And clearly, our PRO, our team, our A team, we are sitting poised and ready to take the bull by the horn, because we're not going to continue with our education system the way it is. We don't care who the minister is. We must work for the children and for our members of Trinidad and Tobago. At the same time, our parents have a lot to do. Our parents have a lot to do. So we're not going to say our parents are scot-free in what's been taking place in the lives of their children. We're not going to do that. But the government of Trinidad and Tobago have to look closely, and when they are putting whoever it is within the Ministry of Education, it must be viable. Must not be just putting somebody or putting a friend. We're not going on that road, and we're going to continue to march and protest, or whatever the case may be for our children.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Any last words, Ms. Raheem?
Thank you all so much for having us. We got a lot, done and spoken about. Just to encourage parents to, be there for your children, support your children, talk to your children, So, that we could sort of alleviate some of the violence that is taking place right now in schools. It is important. It's also important for parents to work with the school, to attend meetings, to find out what is happening, question your children and find out how their day was, what work they did, and try to assist them in the best way possible. Those things are very important, and we all need to work together. Parents ought to understand how important and powerful their role is in the education system. So we need all hands on deck. We need support going forward, and we could only accomplish it with their help and support.
All right.
Thank you.
Raheem, thank you, Mr. Mendoza. Thanks again to our co-host, Mr. Farid Ali, for another wonderful job on kicking off the show today. And we might allow you to do a few more times because you become a quick expert. We appreciate that.
And before you guys close off, I want you all to know we also have with us a youth arm where we have the youth brings information. Right?
So what were you saying, Mr. Mendoza?
I said I want you guys to also understand
that we must send on one. They have a youth arm.
Yes.
You must send one of the representatives on that arm.
Just tell us and we will have them come on and give their perspective of what they've been seeing and what they would have brought to us in the past and what we would have shared with the Ministry of Education in terms of the box lunch being sold for $10 within the school system, and nobody knew that was happening.
Okay. Well, that's breaking news. We must look into that. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Mendoza.
Okay.
Ms. Raheem.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Ali, and our producer, get home safely. Thank you all again and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Our program today featured Farid Ali, our co-host, Richard Norrie, our regular host, Dr. Kirk Meighoo,